What up, HyperChangre? Welcome to another episode. Today we are talking about Elon's Bitcoin tweet storm. This caught me by surprise. I was staying up all night last night scheming on this, super late. I'm on Twitter. Elon starts tweeting about Bitcoin. At first, it's memes. I'm just going to walk y'all through this because this totally cracked me up. He starts with, that was the next one. So he starts with this tweet, Bitcoin is my safe word, and even replies a couple minutes later saying, just kidding, who needs a safe word anyway? I guess this is kind of like a sex joke. I mean, I thought this was just hilarious, like classic Midnight Elon, if you know. Hi, everybody. If you know Elon, he loves tweeting memes. He loves kind of making crazy comments. So this to me was nothing different. Like Bitcoin, my safe word, who's kidding? And, I just put out my video with Michael Saylor, moonshot crazy theory that Tesla should move some of its cash into Bitcoin, get ahead of a lot of other tech companies doing that instead of treasury assets, which I think is a fascinating idea and moonshot. And then to see, so I'm like, okay, Elon's tweeting about Bitcoin. All my homies are texting me. Next thing I know, he tweets this meme. Bitcoin, me trying to live a normal, productive life. I'm like, damn, I feel a little bad. Sorry for annoying Elon and the Tesla team about buying Bitcoin. But I love, and this has kind of been a recurring theme in Bitcoin where Elon kind of brushes it off, but it keeps popping up. So he tweets this meme, and everyone's telling me like, bro, Elon's joking, like he's clowning on Bitcoin. And then next thing you know, this is the tweet that pops up. Oh, he also had a tweet that said, that I forgot to pull up here, that says, Bitcoin sucks less than fiat. And then everyone is like, oh, look, there, Bitcoin. He said Bitcoin sucks. But when I'm reading in between the lines, it's like Tesla in their boardroom, right now at the Tesla board meeting is going, we have 20 billion of cash right now. Are we going to buy treasuries, short-term treasuries? Or what are we going to do with this money? Because we can't spend all 20 billion at once. And so they're looking for a store of value. And so I think it's really fascinating that, no, someone's got Elon on their picture. Love that. That I don't know. I think, they're literally going to have a board meeting now about what is the best store of value for our cash. Is it to keep it in fiat or something else? So when Elon tweets BTC sucks less than fiat, I'm like, well, that's the debate that you're having at the board meeting in a month. So I think that's it's to me what's actually happening right now is Tesla's never been at the point of where they've had too much cash that they can't spend immediately, but that's what they're at now. So I thought that was hilarious, but I don't know. I wasn't taking it seriously. Like I think I'm a Bitcoin believer. I've been long Bitcoin since 2013, like obviously super biased. I just as a finance nerd and someone who studies money and technology and software eating the world, software eating money with this decentralized cryptocurrency put out by an anonymous guy named Satoshi Nakamoto that moves $50 billion a day, that has, 50 million people or more around the world using it. I mean, this is one of the most fascinating economics experiments of all time. And so I've always just been fascinated and curious about this, and I love being curious about crazy assets like this. So I've been long Bitcoin for a long time and just been fascinated by it. And to be frank, it's blown away my wildest expectations for its how far it's come already. Even if it fails tomorrow, it's already come so far in making us rethink what a store of value is. And so I've always been totally fascinated by Bitcoin, and I own some, and I own Tesla stock, so I'm super biased. But I don't know, and I've over time really watched Bitcoin grow up as this radical different thing to become more and more institutionalized, and then to see a company like Square put its treasury assets in Bitcoin, to see MicroStrategy put huge assets in Bitcoin. I mean, PayPal just accepted Bitcoin. I just read a report from Pantera Capital's letter, this really amazing cryptocurrency fund. They're saying Bitcoin just bumped up the volume on the Paxos exchange like crazy. They're buying more Bitcoin than even exists. Like, I think, to me, the thesis of a digital gold 2.0 asset is incredibly compelling for Bitcoin. It's more divisible, easier to move, more decentralized. You can't get more of it. It's software. It's programmable. You can plug it into anything easily. I think this is an incredible piece of technology that deserves a massive amount of our fiat system's value, or is an incredible store of value, much so better than fiat currency in some ways. But now it's about like, okay, well, in a world where fiat currencies aren't backed by anything, we're printing more and more, and the dilution rate is accelerating and potentially in a nonstop permanent spiral of accelerating dilution of fiat currency. I mean, people are really thinking about different assets. That store of value inflation hedge has never been more pertinent. So to me, the TAM of a store of value inflation hedge in our economy is going to be bigger than ever. You got gold at 8 trill, Bitcoin's 400 bill. I think this is a better store of value. So now the question is, Tesla, how do we get from Elon Musk and Tesla? Like, Tesla's in this weird position of, and this is why the fact that Elon replied to Michael Saylor is so interesting. And not only because he was on HyperChangre 4 days ago talking about how Tesla should put all their cash in Bitcoin, but because he's personally doing it. And if you listen to why on the podcast, why he did it, it's fascinating because he's like, we're in our boardroom. We know we aren't going to spend this money for a year. And now we're like, what do we do with it? Before it was always buy treasuries. It's an afterthought. That's the exact conversation that the Tesla board is going to have with their 20 billion in cash. Buy treasury. It's an afterthought, or is it? Because we're getting diluted 20%. Let's start thinking about other ideas and different ways we can maximize shareholder value and be the most efficient with our capital that we've worked so hard. We just sold stock at $650. Do we want to put it into a fiat currency that's diluting 24% a year? I'd rather hold it into Bitcoin. But I'm personally, I'm not sold on this because I think there's a lot of complexities with adding Bitcoin. It's a distraction. The energy consumption of Bitcoin, we'll get to that in a second. But there's a lot of negatives for Tesla being a first mover here. And to be frank, them moving even 5 billion of their cash into Bitcoin and it going up 50x, I guess that kind of would move the needle on shareholder value, actually. But I don't know. It could be a distraction right now for Tesla. It might be too early. Like if Bitcoin had a $4 trillion market cap instead of 400 billion, I think this would be a lot different of a conversation. So in 2023, I think this moves to the table a lot more. But that's why I wanted to be ahead of the curve and start talking about this now because I don't know, I feel like my role is someone who's scheming with Tesla, who's always looking out for the company, who's a shareholder that's super trying to be forward thinking about the way the world's headed and how we can manage our company best. I'm scheming. Let's at least consider Bitcoin. Let's at least have that discussion at the next board meeting of where we're going to say, what are we going to buy? Instead of just blindly assuming treasuries or whatever, let's at least put Bitcoin into the discussion because I don't know. I think it's fascinating. Maybe not. Maybe this is a crazy idea, but and it's possible that Elon's trolling, but to me, like, I don't know. This didn't look like that much of a troll. Like he's definitely publicly contemplating this or he's just trolling us super hard. But I don't know. I just think this is fascinating. It's kind of playing out in real time. And I wonder kind of what's going to be the next shoe to drop with Bitcoin because I don't even think it's going to be Tesla. I think if it's not Tesla, it'll be someone else, another big tech company to start making a move. But my gut feeling as a long-term Bitcoin hodler, has been that, I don't know. It's just, it will become a treasury asset, I think. And if you think about, right now, Tesla's having a $20 billion bet on fiat systems and fiat currencies as a store of value. So to me, it's kind of takes some outside the box thinking to think of that as a speculative bet or a prop bet. But I would say eventually, more and more so, holding fiat on your balance sheet seems like a proprietary bet on the value of that asset. And so at some point, you have to start thinking through of how good of a store of value fiat is versus the other stuff. And so I think we're scratching the surface of not just other companies considering Bitcoin, maybe it'll only be Bitcoin, but of companies just questioning. It's the great awakening. It's what I've been talking about on the channel. It's just, why are we holding our thing in this fiat that they're printing more of every year? And so, I don't know. I personally think Elon is kind of trolling, but is kind of fascinated by this move. And that's kind of where I'm at by it. And I'm not even totally sold that Tesla should move super aggressively into it, but 20 million, 200 million, like if we're gonna have 20 billion in cash, we might as well put 1% into Bitcoin. You know what I mean? I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at, but maybe I'm too much of a radical, millennial Bitcoin bull who doesn't understand why this can't happen. But that's what I would do if I was Tesla. And here's the energy usage part. So I think the energy usage part to me is fascinating. It's something that if I had a beef with Bitcoin, it'd be that it uses too much energy for sure. And I think that's something you have to kind of, I don't know. I definitely think that Bitcoin's energy consumption needs to drop as a percentage of dollars moved, or like amount of energy per dollar moved on the network or amount of unit volume moved on the network has to decrease and has been decreasing. And so this is the big thing about the stagnation fallacy. Every time I see a lot of arguments against Bitcoin, it's like it's too volatile. The fees are too high. It emits too much per transaction. Those are all the stagnation fallacies in a lot of way. This programmable money is getting better at all of those things. And so the volatility is decreasing. It's becoming more and more of a store of value. The academic literature is catching more and more up to this being in every single portfolio. And by the time the academic literature catches up, and by the time it is an official store of value, and by the time everybody thinks it's a no-brainer to put your stuff into Bitcoin, it's up 100x. So that's what I told the Tesla. It's like, yo, we can do this now. I know it's early. I know it's a pain in the ass, but in my gut, I think we're buying at 10 times higher when it becomes the norm in 2025. Maybe that's just a radical idea, but I don't know. That was my take on all of it. So, okay, but the pollution. So, somebody made this really fascinating chart to me that was like, okay, 100,000 transactions on the Visa network pollute as much as one transaction on the Bitcoin network. This is interesting because Bitcoin used to be moving a couple $1,000s per transaction. It's now 150, 200 grand per transaction on the network. Wait, when you swipe your coffee, you're not paying 200 grand. So the fossil fuel emissions per dollar are actually almost on par with the current fiat system, except and then improving at a much faster rate, is my theory. And so you have Jack Dorsey, you have all these people investing in layer 2 solutions. I just think, I don't know, I'm taking a bet that the energy usage per dollar moved on the network has dropped dramatically and will continue to do so. And we have to dedicate a huge portion of our resources as a species to ensuring that we have an adequate store of value technology in our world. Like, we use a ton of resources right now to do the fiat system, to do accounting. We have banks. Go to your neighborhood. 1 and 2 out of the 10 building are banks, and they have all this paper they're printing, and they're using energy all the time. Like, there's a huge cost for the current financial system that we're displacing with Bitcoin in theory. So I don't know. I think, to me, the energy thing is something that I'm still thinking through. I'm beefing about, but I think it will kind of solve itself as the average transaction value moves into the millions and layer 2 solutions flourish, and we have better, cheaper alternative energy because of companies like Tesla. So, okay, we got a super chat here. Bitcoin, yeah. So, okay, what else could Tesla do with their capital? I think this is a fascinating one. If I was Tesla, I'd be buying every single car that came off the production line. If we want to get your two kind of like crazy theory here, like, okay, so you're trying to let me take a sip of beer. So if I was Elon and let's say we're in the boardroom with Tesla here. Let's have let's pitch him something. So if we have every car coming off the line right now and we know that FSD is getting solved, like, I would really want to know the bet of certainty of FSD being solved within 12 months. Because as soon as the certainty of us solving FSD gets higher, and if I were Elon, I'd be scheming with the Chinese government, because it seems like we have a really good relationship with them. They can just whip us up a highway for autonomous cars in 2 seconds from the manufacturing zone of Shanghai to downtown Shanghai, and we can already have the first L5 taxis on certain roads. And I know that's the geographic route, that's not general autonomy, but we're gonna have to partner with the government to get a robotaxi. You have to get the government approval, so there's going to be a region where robotaxis happen first. If I was, they're probably already scheming with a bunch of governments on this, but I would be working on that heavily, and then potentially be getting ready to buy proprietary robotaxis for those networks, because they're letting me buy my Model Y for 70 grand, which has, including FSD, which, in 2 years is going to be a robotaxi that could have a net present value of 150 grand. So Tesla's leaving huge amounts of capital on the table by not buying everything and operating it as a robotaxi, if you think about it that way. So as they get more and more certain to FSD, it just makes sense. And they even said they want to operate their own robotaxis in cities where they don't have the network dense enough. So I think that could be really interesting. Another thing I think Tesla could use their cash on that might be better than Bitcoin. Well, actually, the problem with better than Bitcoin is if you're a Bitcoin bull like me and you believe it has 20x to hit digital gold 2.0, you're like, it's harder to find a higher ROIC than that. But if we're talking about it, I think Tesla, I don't know, I would love to see them buy the Boring Company, frankly, even though that's a little bit outside of the box, just because I think the amount of synergies there of us building these networks and cities, Tesla's having unique access to the tunnels because they can't have ICE cars, them being perfectly situated to have it, integrating in with the FSD, so your Tesla just drives you to the Boring Company tunnel you need to go to. I think that would be a fascinating use of capital. I also think I've floated the idea of, like, becoming a utility, buying energy, creating energy, production assets, creating your own solar farm and battery system. Instead of selling our batteries to Neonin, who then operates them and is making guap on the Tesla batteries, like, nah, let's operate our own power plant. But the problem is the return on capital of that's super low. And so now Tesla, to me, is in this totally mind flip position where Bitcoin's actually not crazy to be on the table anymore, because we went from literally spending every dollar we have to projects to we've actually accumulated so much money we can't spend it all fast enough. Like, on the Third Row interview, shout out to the Third Row, when we hung out with Elon, and I asked him, a little bit maybe annoying, about electric planes. I was like, bro, we're going to do electric planes or what? Like, and he's like, if there was a factory to pump out more engineers, we would invest in that. But we just can't buy more engineers. Like, they don't have the engineering focus to do it. And so even on a previous conference call, I think it was Q2 2018, I asked Elon what the biggest constraint on growth was. And this is when they had like $2 billion in the bank, and it was not capital. And maybe they were just saying that. But so Tesla, even though it looks capital strapped in some ways, their biggest constraint on growth has not been capital. When Elon's wanted to spend money on something, they just go raise it, no problem. From Goldman, Morgan Stanley, they 2 calls, and they got the guap. So now Tesla actually has more money than they can spend within 12 to 18 months. That's my theory. Their CapEx guidance for the next year is 4.5 to 6 billion for each of the next 2 years. But we know Tesla's about to make whatever, 8 billion cash flow. So, 10 billion cash flow minus, like there's no, like, to me, it would be hard for Tesla to be free cash flow break even. Even as much as they're growing now, they're still going to be producing cash flow. So what do you do with that 20 billion? So that's kind of my thing of where I had this crazy scheme for Tesla to buy Bitcoin, because it's like, if we're going to have extra guap on our balance sheet and if we buy treasuries with it, I'm kind of going to be beefing, because I'm going to be like, dude, that was such a whack use of capital. Maybe, I don't know. But that's kind of the mind frame. It's like, if we're going to have to put money on our balance sheet, we're going to have to invest in a store value asset. Let's have Bitcoin be a part of the combo. Maybe Dogecoin too. So Tesla buying Starlink, that's a very interesting thing. And that's something I've thought a lot about that I think would be a genius move. But there's also, I believe, a conflict of interest in not tying up those two companies. And I also think that's another big reason why, if you listen to every single conference call where Adam Jonas asks Elon Musk about Starlink, I think it's because Starlink will eventually get integrated into Tesla's. That is part of the whole game plan, but Elon Musk isn't going to talk about it because he doesn't want to have a material relationship between those two companies. Adam Jonas knows that, is a douchebag, but kind of wants to be on the record predicting it ahead of time, so he's always asking about it. Another crazy theory I have. But if I was Tesla and we had the choice to buy Starlink or Bitcoin, I'm going all in on Starlink. Screw Bitcoin. Like, whatever, Bitcoin's dope and should be a part of the conversation if we don't know what to do with our money. But if we know what to do with it, like, I personally think it's kind of a distraction. I'd rather see Elon build an autonomous cargo ship with deployable solar rings. I'd rather build us drones that go shoot out into the ocean and get sun and then come back and give us energy. Let's build that HVAC. Let's build the Tesla home. But if those take engineering resources and we don't have those and we do have to put cash on our balance sheet, let's put some of that in Bitcoin while we wait to pay the engineers. So I don't know. This is fascinating. For as much as bullish as I am about Bitcoin, like, I still think it could get hacked. I still think it could, I don't understand it well enough for me to say, like, it's bulletproof. Like, it could totally crumble at any moment. Like, I don't know. And then you have it start crumbling, the miners start falling off, and then people start believing in it. It has its own sell-off. But then you kind of have this balancing act where if it goes down enough and enough miners drop off, incentivizes others to come in. So I don't know. I think Bitcoin, you can say what you want about it, but you can't say it hasn't lasted. You can't say it hasn't blown up. You can't say it hasn't grown in value. You can't say it's not moving 20x as much guap as PayPal, because it is. It's moving 20 trill a year. PayPal's moving 1 trill. I mean, it's putting up numbers. Bitcoin's just been putting up numbers. I don't have an opinion either way on that. As just a student of the game who's fascinated by this, I say Bitcoin's putting up 18 trill run rate right now. Fast forward a year, it's probably 100 trill run rate, 500 trill run rate. And then what's the value of that network moving 500 trillion a year? Probably more than 400 bill. So I think this is, for it to even be in the conversation that a big tech company would want to add this to their balance sheet. And the fact that Elon replied to Michael Saylor, even if he was trolling, it's like there's a little bit of truth in every joke. I love that line. And I think there's a little that's how I kind of want to end this and sum up my thoughts on this entire thing. There's a little bit of truth in every joke. And I think this is a joke by Elon. He's kind of trolling with the memes, but low key, he's kind of scheming on it. And I don't know. And so that's where I'm at. And I think if Tesla I want Tesla to spend on changing the world, doing their mission. I want them to invest in changing the world and improving their technology and their business plan. But if the capital markets overvalue our equity so much that we think we should cash out more than we need to spend, and then we have to decide what to do with that money before we spend it and store our value in the most fiduciary responsible way for shareholders, we have to consider all alternatives. And right now, I think it is fascinating. We have to consider Bitcoin as an alternative, as a store of value versus treasuries, just because of past historical performance, just because of the fundamentals. I don't know. I think it's worth being a part of that conversation. And so as much as I feel like I kind of got a lot of heat for this video and idea, it's a moonshot. Like, I have so many crazy ideas, but I got a lot of heat for this idea. But I'm not like buy Bitcoin, Tesla, like let's buy every dollar we have in a Bitcoin. It's like, not like, if we got extra guap we're not doing something with, let's funnel a little bit into the asset. So, and I'm not even fully convinced that should happen, but I do in my gut think we should. And I think it's just a matter of time before another big tech company does and triples the value or doubles the value of Bitcoin by becoming its own catalyst. And that's another really weird thing that I think is on about Bitcoin. It's like, it's a lot, it's psychology, where it's like the Bitcoin FOMO theory. Once Cash App does it, Bitcoin's got to do it. Or PayPal's got to do it. Once PayPal does it, Bank of America's got to do it. Once they do it, Apple's got to keep some on their balance sheet. Once Apple has some on their balance sheet, then Amazon's got to have some on their balance sheet. Then Tesla's going to have some. Then Twitter's going to have some on their balance sheet next week because Dorsey loves it. You know, now you got Chamath and Jack Dorsey tonight tweeting like 600 in fiat to give to the people. Like it's already part of the convo that Bitcoin is up there with fiat as a consideration for a store of value. And right now, fiat's worth 300 trillion and Bitcoin's worth 400 billion. So when you're buying, to me, when you hold your money in fiat, you are speculating on the pendulum constantly staying on fiat and paper currency for the entire perpetual future. When you put a little bit of your money in Bitcoin, you're saying I'm going to hedge against the idea that a software-based internet currency might get a huge market share of the store of value of humans. And to me, this fiat's priced in. Bitcoin's not really priced in. And so I see this pendulum, this ideological pendulum swinging, and the security, the perceived solvency, to bring an OG HyperChangre word in there, of Bitcoin increasing rapidly. The perceived solvency of the US dollar is decreasing rapidly. That is the bet of Bitcoin. That is the conversation going on in every single boardroom. And yeah, I think this is, dude, this is an epic time to be alive. The fact this is even a thing. And so FSD, yeah, I don't know. The FSD subscription thing is really interesting. I've been thinking about that today. You know, I don't know. Anyway, huge shout out to everybody tuning in. I don't know. I just kind of wanted to go live to give you my thoughts because, yeah, I've gotten over 1,000 comments on that Michael Saylor interview. I love that. That was fascinating. Tesla should buy Lyft. They don't need to. Lyft's overpriced. They can just build the network on their own. That's my idea with that. But it's an interesting idea. But anyway, this is HyperChangre. Please let me know what you think in the comments below. I want your idea. Like, am I crazy, or should Tesla move a little bit of its cash into Bitcoin? I would love to know your thoughts. Anyway, leave them below. Thank you so much for tuning in. Huge shout out to our Patreon supporters, producers. We've got the Patreon newsletter coming out tomorrow. So subscribe to that if you haven't already. Anyway, see y'all next time. Peace. Have a great night.